Om Namah Pranavartaya Shuddha Jnanaika Murtaye Nirmalaya Prasantaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpada Shankaram Loka Shankaram Arunagiri Mupetam Satchidanandamurtim Ramana Iti Prithivyam Vishrutam Jnana Suryam Gahana Hridaya Vidyam Leelaya Bodhayantam Satatam Ahamameyam Sadgurum Samsmara. Humble pranams. In the last session, we briefly touched upon the fifth slokam in Atma Bodham. We will continue with that because there are a number of intricate truths discussed in this. So I will take a little more time on this. Ajnana kalusham jivam jnanabhyasat vinirmalam kritva jnanam swayam nasyet jalam kataka renukam ariyamayam kalakam ஆறும் உயிர் தூய்தாம் அறிவு பயிற்சியினால் அவ்வறிவு மகற்றி அறியாமை அழியுமே நீர்மாசு அகற்ற தேற்றாம் பொடி ஒப்பாய். Here there is an interesting truth mentioned, and that is ஞானம் ஸ்வயம் நஷ்யேத், the final stage of self-realization. It is said here, Jnanam Swayam Nashyet. And it says in the previous sentence, in order to completely dispel ignorance, Jnanabhyasam is required. Ignorance getting destroyed is something we can understand. But Jnanam, how does it get destroyed? It's a very interesting point. This particular question was posed to Bhagavan, and Bhagavan has given an answer in talks as well as in Saddarshana Bhashyam. Kapali Shastri has written Saddarshana Bhashyam. And at the time of release of that book, he had a series of talks with Bhagavan, known as talks with Bhagavan in the beginning of the Saddarshana Bhashyam. There also Bhagavan mentions this point. In addition to that, Suri Nagamma, in her letters, one of the letters is dedicated to this particular point. That letter itself is titled as Vritti Janma Jnanam. So what Bhagavan says is, Jnanam Nasyet Swayam. Jnanam, there are two categories, says Bhagavan. One is known as Svarupa Jnanam. The other one is known as Vritti Jnanam. So what is mentioned here, what is referred to here is Vritti Jnanam. Vritti Jnanam Nasyet. That's what it says here. So Bhagavan says, it is only through the mind that one can reach beyond the mind. All of us have got only this instrument available to us, mind, buddhi. It is only through this that you have to realize something that is beyond itself. So there is a vritti involved in this. There is an effort involved in this. This effort and this vritti is unlike any other vritti. Vritti is actually a thought. Vritti is actually a movement in consciousness. That is what we call as a vritti. Mind is after all consciousness only. Only thing is it keeps on moving all the time. It does not stay in any one place. So that consciousness itself, because of its movement, we will not be able to really grasp anything below that. So this vritti jnanam, what Bhagavan says is, this vritti jnanam is a very, very subtle vritti. It is not like any other vrittis. All other vrittis are very gross in nature. They are form-taking type. Mind, in order to understand something, it will take the form of that something. Even an opinion is a form. Even an emotion is a form. So the mind catches hold of an object and tries to understand what that object is. At every experience, this is what happens. That is known as Vishaya Vritti, objective consciousness. He says, Bhagavan says, That is not what is referred to here. This vritti is Atma vritti. It is a vritti on the subject itself. There is no object there. So this is different from the other vrittis, and by its very nature, it has got to be extremely subtle. It cannot be gross at all. It is extremely subtle. This extremely subtle thought, by its constant attention to this I feeling, I amness, it finally cites the self. Even the wording citing the self is also not correct, but for lack of any other expression, we use this expression. So the very subtle thought process is what is required. The mind has to be made very subtle. In Viveka Chudamani, actually many of the verses in Viveka Chudamani are almost like a commentary on Atma Bodham verses. There is a verse in Viveka Chudamani where Adi Shankara says, Ativa Sukshmam Paramatma Tattvam. Paramatma Tattvam is extremely subtle. Ativa Sukshmam. Na stula drishtya pratipartum arhati. It is not possible to catch hold of it by any stula drishti, that is by a gross kind of a vision. It is not possible to catch it because it is extremely subtle. Our thought itself is very subtle compared to our bhautika body. Thought is very subtle. You cannot see the thought. It just comes and goes. But the Paramatma Tattvam is even more subtle than the thought. Ativa Sukshmam Paramatma Tattvam na stula drishtya pratipattum arhati. Samadhina Atyanta Susukshma Vritya. He says, Samadhina Atyanta Susukshma Vritya Nyatavyam Aryaihi Ati Shuddha Buddhibihi. Those with very extremely pure mind, those wise people, Aryaihi, very wise people, they understand it by a very sukshma vritti, and that vritti is called as samadhi. All along we are thinking that samadhi is beyond the mind, but it is a very, very subtle vritti. Samadhi is also a subtle vritti because in the beginning stages, there is an effort involved in holding on to the self. Because there is effort involved in this, it is called as a vritti. Bhagavan says in some other place it is Savikalpa Samadhi. You go through the process of Savikalpa Samadhi leading to Nirvikalpa Samadhi, and finally the Jnani is not even in the Nirvikalpa Samadhi, he is in Sahaja Samadhi. But here what is referred to the Samadhi, Adi Shankara says Samadhi is an extremely subtle vritti and we have to develop that. And in order to develop this particular vritti, Jnanabhyasam is required. That Jnanabhyasam is a constant attention paid to the sense of the self, the I feeling, your own conscious presence. Our conscious presence is with us all the time. Nobody can doubt that. This conscious presence, you pay attention to that constantly. That is the important. It should be constant. It should be continuous, unbroken. Bhagavan says it must be unbroken. When you do that, in the beginning it will be very, very difficult because the mind is immediately thrown out because of the vasanas. But because of the good vasana that we have developed about, I want to really realize the self, it comes back again, goes out, comes back again. Several times, repeatedly, you go through this process. And then finally, there is a stage where this vritti jnanam happens. What is vritti jnanam? Bhagavan explains that to Kapali Sastri. Kapali Sastri asks him the question about aham spuranam. Bhagavan, you are talking about aham spuranam. What is it? So there is a series of answers given by Bhagavan. But one very important clue that Bhagavan gives in that conversation is, in the traditional Vedantic part, aham spuranam is called as vritti jnanam. This aham spuranam is the first taste of the self. When that radiation inside, the radiant presence is felt inside, there's a flash of consciousness, I. The object matter is completely eliminated, and just the subject alone is radiating its presence from inside. Bhagavan calls that as Aham Spurti or Aham Spuranam. And he says here that traditional Vedantins, they call this as Vritti Jnanam. So, Vritti Jnanam is a stage just prior to the final realization. It is a foretaste of realization. You get a taste of it. Of course, it doesn't stay with you. For ordinary people, you go out, come back again, and you have to make it permanent. Sadhana is all about that. So, in the beginning, the sadhana is with effort, and you have to keep on using effort till it becomes effortless. One day, Atman is revealed to you. And afterwards, no effort is required. The yogi stays established in that particular state. So here he says, Kritva jnanam swayam nashyet. I will rearrange the words in such a manner that we are able to understand what Bhagavan is trying to say. I will add this vritti before jnanam to this slokam so that the understanding becomes clear. He says, vritti jnanam jnanabhyasat jivam vinirmalam kritva swayam nasyet. This vritti jnanam purifies the jiva who is full of impurities by constant practice. The impurities are removed. Impurities are removed because vasanas keep on going down. They keep on reducing. They are exposed to this jnana abhyasam, and then they keep on reducing their strength. When the vasana kshayam happens completely, then no more is the movement of the mind. Mind stops moving. It is only the vasana that is the engine for the mind. It is a constant engine running. And that vasanas, they go only when they are exposed to the light of the self. And this is what we are trying to do in this jnana abhyasa. And what we are trying to achieve, with what tool are we achieving this? This vritti jnanam, or this very subtle vritti, which can also be called as aham spurana when it really occurs. So there are the three stages are, first there is aham vritti, which is the normal vritti. This aham vritti that we have, all the thoughts that go on in our mind, their characteristic is there is an I and also there is a this. I am so and so. I am this. I want this. All it comes as a twin. I thought and the this thought. Aham, idam. They come together. They are twins. They keep on coming together. That is the normal state of a vritti. From that, you are isolating the aham from the combination of aham idam. I am this. You are trying to isolate and concentrate only on the conscious presence of yourself. This isolating process is what Atma Vicharam tries to achieve. And once these two things get separated, the I alone remains. And that is the second stage. This stage is Aham Spurti, where Aham alone survives, the Idam goes. Aham Vritti, Aham Spurti. But even this Aham Spurti is not the final thing. Even this Aham Spurti, these flashes of consciousness, even that has to go. And that will die down by itself. Swayam nasyet. That's the meaning of this word. Swayam nasyet. You keep on looking at the Atman. One day, when it will occur, we cannot ask. One day, if you are sincere, you are committed, and there is grace of the Guru, when all these things are there, Atma reveals itself. Atma has to reveal itself. Our efforts can go up to that place. We keep on holding on to that I thought, that isolated I, that aham presence. You keep on holding on to that up to that extent, effort is involved. And Bhagavan says, after that, something underneath rises up, pulls you down, and makes you submerge yourself within it. the aham gets dissolved completely. There is purnatvam there. So this is the stage, and the final stage is aham bodham. Aham vritti, aham spurti, aham bodham. Aham bodham is atma bodham. That jnani has an effortless establishment on the self. This is the process, and that is why Bhagavan talks about this aham vritti, this vritti jnanam. This vritti jnanam is an intermediate stage which we have to reach, and it is a very, very subtle thought. We have got to do that. This is not Vishaya vritti, but this is Atma vritti. And then the comparison that is given in Atma Bodham to make things look simpler for you is that in order to purify water in the olden times, muddy water will be purified by adding on to that this particular powder, Kathakarenu in Sanskritam. In Tamil, it is known as Tetram Podi. Actually, it is a powder of a nut. It's a nut powder. This is used for cleansing and other things. Even today, I think in soaps, it is used. This Tetram Podi they used to add to the water, a jar of water. And all the impurities are taken out, and this also sinks to the bottom. Even the one that made the impurities sink to the bottom, it also sinks. Like Swayam Nasyet. That's the reason why he uses this particular comparison. And there are very good other examples also. Bhagavan himself gives this example in Who Am I? People who have read the text, he uses a particular comparison which is Pinam Shudu Tadi. Funeral pyre, the body is kept, it is going to be burnt. And the fire is lit. And the person who is in charge of taking care of this cremation, he uses a small stick. He keeps on poking the funeral pyre so that the fire is uniform all over the body and it is burnt uniformly. At the end of that burning, he throws the stick also into the same pyre and everything gets burnt. Just like this vritti also gets burnt in the Jnana Agni, that stick is also burnt. And in Srimad Bhagavatam, there is another extraordinary comparison. Srimad Bhagavatam, towards the end, Uddhava Gita and all other sections come there. Pure Advaitam. Once you go to that, they'll say it is not a Bhakti Grantham, but it is pure Advaita Grantham. Anyway, there it says, this extraordinary example is given there. There is a forest of bamboo trees, tall bamboo trees. Venu Vanam. That's what the sloka says. There is a Venu Vanam. With wind, these bamboos are, moving. And one bamboo touches the neighboring bamboo. And this friction, constant friction between the bamboos starts a small spark. That small spark becomes a fire. That fire completely burns down the entire Venu Vanam. And when no more bamboo has to be burnt, the fire also dies down. So, this vritti jnanam sets fire to the vrittis in our mind. All other vrittis are burnt off. And finally, this vritti jnanam also subsides into that Supreme Self, becomes one with it. Till the time that happens, one should not give up one's effort. One should keep on at it. So here, Jalam Kataka Renukam. And Bhagavan has quoted. When T.K. Sundaresaiyar asked this question about Vritti Jnanam in the letters that I mentioned, Nagama's letters, Bhagavan quotes Kaivalya Navanitam to him. And it's a very similar thing, beautiful. He says, Kaivalya Navanitam, this book says, Veedu Aduvam. Veedu means moksham. In Tamil, Veedu means liberation. This actual meaning is home. Actually, we are going back to our home. We have strayed out of our home. We are suffering all these things because of straying out of the home. We are going back. So, in Tamil, this is a beautiful word. Veedu, this is your own home. Veedu Aduvam, that is the moksham or liberation. Paripurna Swarupatil Vritti Jnanamum Kudi. this vritti jnanam merges. Shedamahinal, that is, it subsides into that. Akandamam anubhava siddhi, this akandakara siddhi happens to you at that time. Eppadi endral, how is it? Then he gives this example. Chadi neer, jadi, jar. Chadi neer, mannai piritta தேற்றாம் பொடி தானும் மண்ணோடு மாயும். This soap nut powder also sinks to the bottom. ஊடி ஞானமும் அறிவு இல்லாமையை கெடுத்து, அறியாமையை கெடுத்து, it takes away the ignorance and கெடும் தானே, it also finally dies down. So swayam nashyet, vritti jnanam swayam nashyet, and that is the final liberation, because no effort should be there. Effort should be there in the beginning, but that effort should become an effortless kind of an abidance, because effort always involves an ego that is making an effort. Some, even though it is a very subtle ego, that even that subtle ego should not survive. It should completely die down and then become one with that akanda akara. So this is what this particular fifth shloka says, and yeah, I just want to quote from Bhagavan himself in Ulladu Narpadu about this subtle vritti, how the vritti is very subtle. He says in one place, இந்த நான் எங்கெழும் என்று நுண்மதியால், நுண்மதி, the very subtle thought has to be employed. நான் என்று இத்தேகம் நவிலாது, that is the verse. In that he says nunmadi. Nunmadi is this very subtle thought. You have got to go down into that subtle mode. Mind has to become shed. It should completely get removed of all the fat that is there. You cannot take a thick rope and put it into the eye of a needle. It has to become a thread. That rope has to shed all its fat and become very, very, very thin, so that it can enter into the eye of the needle. And entering into the eye of the needle is what Bhagavan says is entering into the heart. That hole is very, very small. So one has to have the nunmadi, the sukshma buddhi, the sukshma vritti, one has to develop. And that is what is jnanabhyasam all about. The traditional Vedanta talks about Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasam. And Bhagavan says, condenses everything into this. Ask yourself this question, who am I? Or look for the source of this I. Put your attention completely on this and look for the source. Then the thought that Atma Vicharam also merges that final Akandakara, and you become the self. So this is the fifth verse. I will go to the next verse. Series of metaphors are used because, we can relate to many of these things when we have our, day-to-day experiences quoted. Then it becomes easier for us to know that. Samsaraha swapnatulyohi ragadveshadi sankulaha swakale satyavat bhati prabodhe satyasat bhavet satyavat satyasat. The word play, but the meanings are different. Samsaraha swapnatulyohi. He says our wakeful world is not different from dream. Swapnatulyam. Ragadveshadi sankulaha. This is nothing but a combination of, collection of ragam and dvesham. He says adi means etc. Raga, dvesha, etc. Kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mata, matsarya. Patanjali, he has a different set of this raga, dvesha, adi. He says avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhiniveshaha, kleshaha. There are known as pancha kleshas, afflictions. the suffering. There are pancha kleshas, and whole thing starts with avidya. And that avidya rises within you, this feeling, I am so and so, this individuality arises. That's what he calls it as asmita. Avidya, asmita. And then the individual has ragam, dvesham, likes and dislikes. I like this, I don't like this, kind of a thing. Raga, dvesha, abhiniveshaha. Abhinivesham is clinging on to something. We have an opinion, we cling on to that opinion. We do not want to really concede. Not only an emotion, we want to cling on to life also. Everything that we like, we want to cling on to that. This abhinivesham is a klesham, is an affliction. These are known as pancha kleshas, the 5 types of afflictions. Anyway, raga, dvesha, adi sankulaha, says Atma Bodham. Ragam, dvesham, and so many other things are there. And our life is only a collection of all these things. We go through life only with all these emotions. So he says, this is swapna tulyohi. Realize that this is only like a dream. And then he says, swakale satyavat bhati. While it is going on, while there is a dream going on, it looks like a very real thing to you. You do not question the dream. Why? You are dreaming. When you wake up, then you look back, you remember the dream and you laugh because so many crazy things have happened in the dream. But while the dream was going on, you never questioned it. But this knowledge that Swapnam was all wrong, it was just an appearance, that knowledge does not seem to have any effect on your having a dream again. Yesterday I had a dream and I said it is all wrong, all bogus, rubbish. But tonight, again, once again, I am going to have a dream. Another dream, I will believe in that dream. What happened to the knowledge that you had in the waking state? The dreamer is not different from the waker. Dreamer and the waker are one and the same. But the waker's knowledge has not gone to the dreamer. So you once again go through the same dream process. Bhagavan says, you do this because the mind has a habit of believing in anything that it creates. It will never believe. It will never disbelieve. If it creates something, it will believe in it. That is the nature of mind. So it will never question itself. So the waker's knowledge about the dream does not stop the dream from happening again and again. The dreams will go on entire lifetime. And Bhagavan says that dream gives you a very good clue for the sadhana. The clue that is given by dreaming is that it wants you to question this wakeful state also. Is there any difference between the dream and the wakeful state? We will say, no, this is very real, but that is not real. But why did he not ask this question in the dream state? So it makes you ask this question in the waking state, is this real? That question should come to you. And Bhagavan has never conceded. Again and again, Chadwick and Cohen, so many people would somehow try to bring out a difference between a wakeful state and a dream state. Bhagavan would never concede. And the reason is again this. As I said, the dreamer does not know about the waker. You might have had a full meal, gone to sleep, and in your dream, you may be thinking that I'm very hungry, I have to get food somewhere, go around begging everywhere. But just a few minutes earlier, you had had a full meal. The waking knowledge is not available to the dreamer. The dreamer has no knowledge about the waker. In a similar way, we, in this wakeful state, we do not have any knowledge about that Paramarthika Satyam. We do not know anything about that fundamental state on which all these things are happening. We never know that. That is why a jnani is able to see. A jnani can know about the wakeful state, the dream state, and the sleep state. because he has woken up from this samsaric dream. After having woken up, he is able to say that this waking state is no different from the dream state. This life is made of dream stuff. This particular knowledge should come to us with this clue. While it is happening, swakale satyavatu bhati. While it is happening, everything will look very real to you because the mind is the only thing that is seeing the whole thing. Mind will not question it. Swakale satyavatu bhati prabodhe sati. However, on waking up, sati here means prabodhe sati. On waking up, asad bhavet, it becomes unreal. Just a shift in consciousness. From the dream consciousness, a momentary shift into the wakeful consciousness, a whole dream world collapses. For the jnani, this waking world has similarly collapsed. He does not see the world as we see it. It does not, Bhagavan, he is moving with all the people, talking, writing, all these things. But he does not see the world the way we are seeing it. I think I related the story of Kunju Swami. These are all living demonstrations. We will not believe. Can we believe that? You cannot believe in this world. The whole thing is just asatyam. We cannot really conceive of such a thing. But Bhagavan demonstrated it in his life. You remember that story of Kunju Swami? Kunju Swami wanted a Malayalam biography. Yeah, people are writing about Bhagavan's story in Tamil and in all other languages, but not in Malayalam. So that was his long-standing grief. So he kept on talking about it. And once he went out of the ashram, and some Malayalam writer at that time came to the ashram, and then he wanted to write something about it, about Bhagavan's biography. Unfortunately, he consulted all the wrong people in the town, and then they gave all kind of stories about Bhagavan. Townspeople, they attributed a lot of miracles to Bhagavan. They said that he was married, he had kids, he did not like the life, and then he came. All, everything. Oh, he wrote all that thing. Gave it to Bhagavan. Bhagavan knew Malayalam. Bhagavan also went through the whole thing. Page after page, he went through the whole thing. He was also seen correcting everything. And after the whole thing was over, Kunjusami comes back and excitedly, Kunju, your wish has been fulfilled. This is the biography. Bhagavan's handwriting, there are corrections in that Malayalam biography. Totally rubbish. So Kunju Swami was very, very thrilled and he took it home to his room and then saw the thing and he was horrified. Next day he comes running to the hall. Poi, poi. All this is poi. So Bhagavan looked at him and smiled and then said, our Kunju has become a great jnani. Our Kunju has become a great jnani. He has understood what is the difference between asatyam and satyam. So he was just pulling his leg. And then he became more serious. And then he said this, as though all this is real. I believe with a sweep of his hand, pointing to the world around, as though all this is real. That was his actual experience. If such stories are not known to us, it will still remain as a mystery. How can a jnani think that the whole thing is asatyam? But there was a living demonstration given by Bhagavan. Prabodhe sati asad bhavet. It becomes that prabodham that is mentioned here is the supreme awakening, the final awakening. When that happens, then this world also, this worldly matter also becomes totally unimportant. Actually, there is a beautiful sloka in Bhagavad Gita, in the second chapter. Most profound Advaitic truths are mentioned in the second chapter. And because Arjuna did not understand, the other chapters followed. Otherwise, he would have stopped there. Arjuna understood. That's what Bhagavan used to say. So, before I come to the sloka, in Lakshmana Sharma's writing, he writes one of the slokas in Ramana Paravidyopanishad. He says, the Ajnanis have only one state and the Jnani has also only one state. All of us are in only one state. We are all talking about sleep and deep sleep. We talk about dream. We talk about waking state. No, there is only one state. And that state is Nidra. All of us are asleep all the time. And this Nidra has a name. It is known as Swarupa Vismriti Nidra. We do not know our own Swarupam. This Vismriti continues throughout the life. From the time we are born till we die, we are in this sleep. We do not know anything at all of that state which is beyond us. This Swarupa Vismriti Nidra, in this, when there are no Swapnam at all, we call it a Sushupti. If there is a Swapnam, it could be dream 1 or dream 2. Dream 1 is the normal dream. Dream 2 is this wakeful dream. So this is Saswapna Nidra, that is Niswapna Nidra. That is the only difference. But Nidra. It is only Nidra. Swarupa Vismriti Nidra. Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, Ya Nisha Sarvabhutanam Tasyam Jagarti Samyami Yasyam Jagrati Bhutani Sa Nisha Pashyato Munehe. Samyami, the yogi, what is night to us is wakefulness to the Samyami. We do not know about our own self. Our Swarupa Jnanam is not there, but he is immersed in the Swarupa Jnanam. So he says beautifully that what is night to us is wakeful state for the Jnani. Jagarti Samyami. Yasyam Jagrati Bhutani. Sa Nisha Pashyato Munehe. The wakeful world about which we are aware is actually night to the yogi. He sees only darkness in it. He does not see the world at all. What is night to us is day to him. What is day to us is night to him. So that is the meaning of this. So this is there is the dream or wakeful state. Both these things are not real because they come and go. They do not endure. They do not stay with you. How can you really take a state to be real when it does not stay with you? The test of reality is it should be there all the time, unchanging. That is the test of reality. And Bhagavan keeps on mentioning this. Talk after talk, you will find Bhagavan. What is reality? What is the standard of reality? It should be real all the time, unconditionally real, independently real. And it should know itself by itself. There should not be any other thing to make it known. And nothing can really fulfill all these requirements except that state of awakening, that prabodham. That prabodham alone, when you awaken to that state alone, you will find that it never leaves you. You are there in that all the time. Otherwise, it is only sleep. So we are all asleep all the time. Only the jnani is awake. Nobody else is awake. We should really awaken up to that. Awaken to that ultimate state. So, prabodhe sati asad bhavet. And I will touch upon one more verse. Let's see how far we can see this verse. The 7th verse, continuation of ignorance, unreality of the world. That is the subject matter that is being then with different metaphors. Dream metaphor was given now. Now he is going to give another metaphor. Tavat satyam jagadbhati shuktika rajatam yata yavanna nyayate brahma sarvadhishtanam advayam. Tavat satyam jagadbhati yavat na jnayate brahma. The first half sentences of the two sentences. First half I am merging and then saying this. Tavat satyam jagadbhati yavanna jnayate brahma. This world will shine as real as long as you do not know the reality beneath it, underneath it, the substratum. As long as that substratum is not known, this illusion will continue. The illusion of this world will continue. That's what he says. And for that, he gives a metaphor. The metaphor is on a beach when you are walking at a distance, you will suddenly see a shining thing. It looks like a silver coin. Shuktika rajatam yata. Rajatam is actually silver. Of course, now today silver's value is very, very high. Even in those days, it was a very precious metal. Silver coins used to be made. Somebody is walking on the beach and then he sees, oh, there is a silver coin. He runs towards that. And then he sees finally that it is only the seashell and not silver. Till the time, he will be greatly attracted to that. Once he knows the actual nature of that, then the attraction drops off. Similarly, here, what is being implied is something else is appearing in the place of one entity. In the place of a real entity, an unreal entity is appearing. That unreality of that sight will continue as long as you do not know what is the basis of that. Till you analyze what is the substratum, what is the basis of this appearance, till the time you will continue to believe in the appearance that is there. This particular thing is known as adhyasam, superimposition. Adi Shankara is really very famous for this adhyasam because he was the one who really introduced this, a profound truth, an outstanding insight into Advaita Vedanta, where he talks about superimposition. One thing appearing as another thing. With that, he explains a lot of things. In fact, Brahma Sutra Bhashyam, the commentary that he wrote on Brahma Sutras, the initial chapter, the first chapter, before he begins his Brahma Sutra, is about this Adhyasam. That particular section is known as Adhyasa Bhashyam. Adhyasa Bhashyam. Adhyasa Bhashyam is considered to be one of the most brilliant texts produced on metaphysics. Both the Western scholars and the Oriental scholars, they accept this. Very brilliant because without giving any religious connotation, he explains through simply marvelous logic about this superimposition. Because he was refuting all other sectarian logic about ignorance. They also talk about ignorance. Yeah, every Visishtadvaitam, Dvaitam, everything will talk about ignorance. We do not know Lord Narayana. That is why we are undergoing all these difficulties and so on. They will all be having a religious connotation. But here, Adi Shankara, very universal. Everybody, even today, at any time, at any place, they can look at it and then they can really marvel at the logic that he has presented. Ultimately, what he says, the saramsham of this Adhyasa Bhashyam is the Adhishtanam, the substratum is the real thing. On that real substance, an unreal thing is actually superimposed. The unreal hides the real and parades as the real. It actually goes about saying that I am real, whereas it has completely hidden the reality. And that is the reason why we do not know about the Atman, which Bhagavan says is the one that is sustaining you every second of your life. We do not know the nature of our Swarupam only because it has been hidden from our view and something else has been projected. So there is a simultaneous action of hiding and a projection of the unreal thing. And in the process, what happens, Adi Shankara says, is the characteristic of one is transferred to the other, and the characteristic of the other is transferred to the substratum. There is a mutual paraspara adhyasam. This is what happens. So he says that in our life, if you really analyze our experiences in our life, we go through various kinds of experiences. A limited individual, that is, we are the limited individuals, constantly changing. Yesterday's me is not today's me. I have really acquired something new. There is a constantly changing individual who is experiencing something which is also constantly changing. Today's experience is not going to be there tomorrow. The same event, we experience it in one manner today, tomorrow we will experience it in some other manner. There is a flux, a continuously changing flux that is going on in this universe. The pramata, the experiencer, is changing all the time. And the prameyam, the experience, is also constantly changing. The world is not the same. Every second the world changes. The world around us changes. We are changing. Mind is changing. Body is changing. But surprisingly, he says, strangely, we all want permanence. Is it not? We want permanent happiness. And we want permanence. We want to exist permanently. We do not want to die. What is this? He points out that unless there is an intuitive knowledge about some unchanging eternal thing within you, you are not going to get this. Because it is very natural. You do not know what it is, but there is an intuitive understanding of something which is permanent and changeless. He calls that as the Atman. Permanent, unchanging thing is your own self. That is Atman. And you have somehow projected the Atman's characteristics onto the body and the body's characteristics onto the Atman. The body says, I say, I am tall, I am short. I is not tall or short. The body is tall or short. Body is fat or thin. Body is hungry or thirsty. But he says, I am hungry, I am thirsty. And we also say, I know this. Knowingness is not this body's characteristic. Knowingness comes from that Atman. Atman alone illumines your mind, and so you know something. So the characteristic of the Atman is transferred to you. You have transferred it onto yourself, and the body's characteristic you have transferred onto the Atman, saying that I'm going to die sometime or the other. Atman does not die. The body may die. Body may fall sick. Atman does not fall sick. So this mutual paraspara adhyasam. So this adhyasam has to be eliminated. That is the crux of the whole thing. And so Adi Shankara's Adhyasa Bhashyam is a great explanation about the way in which we feel confused in this life. We desire things that are not really logical to desire. Impermanence in this life is a desire. It cannot happen when you keep seeing changes happening all the time. Yaksha Prashnam, the first question is this. What is the strangest thing in life? The question asked. Yudhishthira answers, the strangest thing is every day people die. Gachantiha Yamalayam. Everybody. But somehow we feel that death will not affect us. What can be more strange than this, he says. Yudhishthira answers. So, expecting this, a permanent thing from an impermanent world, is the error. And that error has to be corrected, and that is the basic ignorance. And that basic ignorance he explains through this Adhyasam. Adhyasa Bhashyam is all about it. I have oversimplified it. It is much more complex, and people say, I have not read it. People say that it is one of the most brilliant pieces of logical metaphysical development in our life. I will continue a little more on the same sloka at the next session, but right now I will stop here. Thank you.